In. So let me just start by saying hello and thank you so much for coming and joining us. It was going to be a grey kind of meeting time, but look, the sun's come out in this big light above window above Sophia and I. My name is Rachel Morris. I'm one of the founding partners of Motion Learning. I'm also a coach and I'm also a working mother. And I've been researching and practicing in this whole area of parental transition. Today we're focusing on maternity transition for well over 10 years now. And in that journey, we found some insights, we've seen some patterns, and we're going to share those with you today over the course of the next 45 minutes. I'll tell you more about that in a moment, but we've got a couple of people I want to introduce themselves as well. So firstly, my colleague, who is also a maternity coach, Sophia.
Hello, hi everybody, my name is Sophia. I work with Rachel as one of the coaches. I'm also a working mother too. I'm trying to kind of slightly dart out of this sun. It's a little bit distracting, but I hope you can all see me. Really nice to see you all, and really looking forward to the conversation today.
So joining our conversation, we have two people whose perspectives I value greatly and their insights. So we have Gervase Clarke and we have Hayley Still. So Gervase has a really wonderful perspective as both a commercial business leader, so from how commercially you bring maternity coaching into organisations, but also as a father, having watched his own partner go through the maternity transition, and as a line manager of people who have been receiving maternity coaching. So Gervase, would you just say a quick hi and introduce yourself to people, please?
Yeah, thank you, Rachel, and thanks for inviting me onto this. Great to be part of the conversation. As Rachel said, I work at Get Images. I'm a husband, I'm a dad to 2 daughters, and yeah, really good to be part of this conversation.
Thank you, Gervase. And we have Hayley Still, the wonderful Hayley Still, who has a son who has just turned 1. So Hayley, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thanks, Rachel. Yes, hi guys, I am Hayley Still. I'm CEO of Hydrogen Group. I have been back at work for 6 months, and whilst I was on maternity leave, I was promoted into the CEO role, and I've been working with Rachel as a coach, helping to support me through that period for well over a year now. But yes, thank you for having me, and I'm just hopeful to learn something myself actually from this, and anything I can contribute from my side.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So we are here to offer you our top tips about how coaching can support individuals and organisations through the maternity transition. So I suppose it makes sense for me to start by explaining what we mean when we are talking about the maternity transition. So during the course of our work, we've identified 3 quite critical, quite key phases as part of the journey a working woman goes on when she goes out to have a baby and when she returns back into the workplace as a working mother. This is the transitional journey that we are talking about. And the 3 phases, there is 1 before the woman leaves to go on her maternity leave. We, from our research and from testing it and checking it, we believe that this is about 8 to 10 weeks before the woman leaves, before the due date of the baby. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that, but it's that really significant phase where both working life, professional life is still really ramped up, and personal life, the baby and the arrival of the baby and becoming a mother is ramping up. And it's this phase where these 2 seemingly incompatible words start to collide. The second phase we've identified is when the woman is out on her maternity leave. It differs globally, depending on how long a woman is taking off. But in the UK, it uncannily hits about 3.5 to 4 months after the woman has given birth. And it's where she describes always to us, I start to come up for air and then I'll start getting those work thoughts again. How on earth is work and now what I understand about motherhood and having this baby, how are these 2 things kind of going to be compatible? How are they going to come together? The third phase of the maternity transition that we've identified through our work is that re-entry back into the workplace. So it's roughly the first 3 months, 3 to 4 months that the woman actually returns back into the workplace, now as a working mother. And from our research and our understanding, we can identify that there are really significant characteristics, significant patterns at each of these behaviours, significant needs that we will see in the woman. And from a coach's perspective, when we can identify the needs, when we can identify the behaviours, we can start to identify the solutions. So what we have done is we have developed a model, we have developed a coaching methodology which we use with our clients to help them anticipate these critical phases and support the woman as she kind of rides this particular wave of transition.
So why is coaching this particular transition important? So quite rightly at the moment, we're all talking about inclusion. And part of that conversation is talking about the female talent, thinking about the female talent pipeline. Another piece of that conversation is to question why there's a gap in this pipeline. What's stopping women reaching the highest levels of leadership? So our research shows that attrition rates for women are higher after returning from maternity leave than any other point in their careers. We're literally hemorrhaging women during maternity leave or shortly after they come back. And this isn't because women have decided to give up work and care for their family, which is often a massive misunderstanding of employers. The research shows that these women leave because of lack of support, opportunity, and support following their return to work after maternity leave. So it seems that motherhood is a real pinch point for a woman's career. And the really interesting piece here is that more women who have dependent children are working. Around 75% of us work. And that number is increasing, but very slowly. So over about the last 20 years, this figure has gone up from 66% to 75%. So in my working lifetime, we've only managed to increase working mums by 9%. So what's happening it seems is that women are working, but they are leaving their existing jobs, finding something that might suit them better, and all that lost talent, skills, experience out of your pipeline into the pipeline of your competitors, possibly. So maternity pay, we've got maternity leave, parental leave, shared parental leave, all really, really good steps to support women, but and they go a really good way to supporting women, but it's not enough. Our research shows, and there needs to be a lot more research, that in order to retain female talent and really help that talent to thrive, that the best businesses include maternity coaching as a support for their employees. So we think we can reduce that attrition by half in the first 24 months after returning to work by offering effective coaching, maternity coaching. Rachel, I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, I think to let you know what we're going to do today is we will have more information we can share with you, but we're going to go through what we think are our 5 top tips. We've thought of everything we've researched, everything we understand, everything we know. What are our 5 top tips? We're going to share them with you. We're going to get some stories from Hayley and from Gervase, so kind of from their experience of it. And then what we will do is we will have some time for Q&A at the end. So do please feel free to put any questions and things like that you've got into the chat. We will take questions from there as we come towards the end of our conversation, and any that we don't get a chance to do now, we will send you some responses to afterwards for sure. We are going to be recording this. We won't record the Q&A session that you guys might be speaking in, but we're going to record everything else, so you can have a copy and send it out to people within your organisation and within your network too. So should we crack on with these top 5 tips? So our first tip number 1 is start the coaching early. Starting early, we really believe offers benefits to absolutely everyone. For us, working in this area has got real win-win. It offers benefits to the individual, it offers benefits to the line managers, to the team, and it offers benefits to the business. So I briefly mentioned these 3 different phases that we've identified in this journey. And when we talk about start coaching early, it seems to be the pinch point is about this 8 to 10 week period before the woman leaves for her due date. So if you're thinking about when do these interventions have the most impact, that's the period of time that is going to be important. As I mentioned, what we have at this period of time is work has been very, very big. Baby has been there, we know the baby's coming, but it still feels like quite a long way off. And then at this 8 to 10 week period, the baby kind of stuff ramps up, but the work stuff is still there and is still really powerful. It's still really significant, and it's still kind of ramping up as well. You've got to do this before you leave. You've got to do that before you leave, etc., etc. What we often see if we think about behaviours at this first early kind of phase of transition is real overwhelm. So women talk, they use slightly different language, slightly different ways of expressing it, but a real sense of overwhelm in this early stage. Quite often women will talk about feeling out of control. So from a coaching perspective, when we know this, we can put control techniques in place, we can put overwhelm techniques in place, as I say, to help the woman really kind of ride this wave. From a business perspective, the kind of benefits that businesses see from supporting at this early stage of the transition are things like way better handovers, much more considered, more thought out, more structured handing over of the work baby as such. I'm going to ask Hayley if she doesn't mind kind of coming into the conversation here, because Hayley, I know you did actually take advantage of maternity coaching before you went off to have your baby. Can you tell me just kind of what your experiences were from receiving intervention at that early phase?
Yeah, definitely. I think, as you've said, it's quite a crucial stage. I mean, first of all, it's sort of one big thing I found about coaching generally is it is a moment that makes you just stop and think. And quite often in our roles, we're sort of pedaling and going from one thing to the next. And it forced me to stop and think. But really importantly for me, it helped me sit and create a roadmap of what, not just what I want to do for the handover, but how I want the whole maternity leave from a work perspective to kind of pan out. And so then we worked backwards and looked at, okay, so what does that mean in terms of the next few weeks? Which conversations do you need to be having? You know, what do we need to get in place? And because I got that roadmap in place, when I then was on maternity leave, I felt much calmer. I wasn't like worrying about what's going on at work, because I already knew we had a plan in place, which I'd communicated to everyone. And the second part that was really helpful was really nailing down what vital conversations I needed to have that I was perhaps avoiding, or I didn't know how to have them, or I really kind of needed to have, and forced me to sort of go and have them, so that I knew that everyone was on the same page, we were working towards the same things. And also crucially, I found that I work in a very male-dominated environment. All of the execs that work with me, they're all male. My line managers are male. This is my first baby, so everyone was really looking at me and taking their lead from me. It was a bit like this sort of blind leading the blind in many respects. They were all like, "Oh, we don't know what to say to you," and I was a bit like, "Oh, I don't know what you should say to me. I've never had a baby before." But having the conversations with you helped me realise, okay, they do need to take their lead from me, and this is how I want these conversations to work. And so then we all sort of worked together and educated. I helped educate them. And that then built trust, so that once the trust is in place, when you're on maternity leave, you can really kind of relax, because you know you've got your roadmap, you've had your conversations, we all know what's happening, and we all kind of trust each other that, you know, it's going to work in the right way. So I thought it was really vital.
Thank you, Hayley.
Thank you.
I think as well, just quickly putting on your first point, that opportunity for space and time to think. One of the things that I hear a lot in my maternity coaching conversations is everybody's got a view, everybody's got an opinion, and actually the individual herself having space to find her thoughts and to find her certainty, so she then can communicate it, is really critical. Thank you, Hayley. So guys, our tip number 1, starting the coaching early provides benefits for everybody, the individual, the line managers, and certainly for the business. We're going to move on to tip number 2. So tip number 2 is involve the line managers, set them up, educate them, get them to be part of it, set them up so then they know when and how to support. So in our experience, when line managers internally are educated to understand the maternity transition and the types of patterns, the types of trends that we can see, the types of interventions that are going to help, they are way better equipped to preempt conversations that could later come on to be problematic. Again, I've said already, but if we know someone's going to feel out of control at a particular time, talking about them in ways that are going to help them regain control is really powerful. So what we suggest is, whether it is group interventions, doing all line managers, whether it is that you train all your line managers up in one go, whether you set up internal networks where line managers help support each other, but education, encouraging dialogue, giving people tools, giving people insight, giving people briefing sessions is only going to benefit everybody in the long term. I'm going to bring Gervase into this, if I may, because Gervase is going to wear a number of different hats today. Gervase, you're a terribly useful person to have on this call. Thank you. Gervase, I'm going to ask you to do this with your line manager hat on, because you're the line manager commissioning coaching for your own direct reports at times. So how has understanding the transition helped you to support them?
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. I mean, it's helped me enormously. I would say, in my career, I've moved from a position of relative ignorance to one where I have much more confidence and empathy that helps me better support women embarking on the maternity transition. My starting point was quite a long time ago when, as a manager, I first worked with someone going on maternity leave. And whilst I was familiar with policy, I remember feeling very aware that there was so much I didn't know, and there was probably so much more I could have done. And over the years, through a combination of working with women going on maternity transition, many conversations with you, Rachel, and your team, and the experiences of my own wife, who went on maternity leave twice, it's helped me feel much more confident and understanding. It's given me a point of view. I'm far from done. I've got a lot to learn, but it's helped me. And I would say, currently I have someone on maternity leave, and I know they have a coach who they've picked. I know we have a plan, and I'm thinking about their return to work and how that dovetails with the ongoing changes to our business and the way we're working. So while she's out, I don't really think of her as being out, but rather part of our present and future plans. And I think that mindset, allied with coaching, puts me in a much better position to support women through their maternity transition.
Thank you very, very much indeed, Gervase. So tip number 2, guys, involve the line managers in a way that works for your organisation, in a way that works for your people. But we know that it enables dialogue to happen before things become problematic. It increases collaboration before we've got people in potentially opposing ends of a stand kind of trying to sort something out. Thank you, Gervase, very much indeed.
We're on to tip number 3. Yeah, we're on to tip number 3. Okay, so just a recap of the top tips so far. Number 1, start the coaching early. Number 2, involve the line manager. And number 3 is treat the returner as a new starter. So think new woman, new company, new role. And this one really resonates with me personally. So my personal experience and our collective experience tells us that lots of the language used in maternity transition causes unnecessary problems. So, for example, when people are asked to find their replacement, I mean, none of us want to be replaced or feel like we're being replaced, especially at a time when we might be facing a lot of unknowns, feeling more vulnerable. The most problematic, though, in our view, is the language they use around the returner. So Sophia is returning, coming back. When so-and-so returns, it will be on her agenda, etc., etc. So there's an assumption there that we'll have the same person coming back to the same job, the same work, the same team. But as we all know, businesses don't stand still for very long. Maternity leave can be quite a long time. It can be a few months, it can be a year. And in that time, the woman will be different. She will have had some really life-changing experiences. And it's very possible that the work will be different. The team could be very different too. So our top tip here, I think of her as a new starter. Treat her with the care you would when you're onboarding someone into your business. And she won't hit the ground running, even though she may really want to. That may be her desire. She'll need time to reacclimatise, find her feet, work out who she is, and who's who, what's what. Help her to come back gently and effectively, and you'll once again save yourself time, much bigger problems later down the line. So the benefits to you and the individuals in your business of taking this approach are massive. You know, when you onboard someone really thoroughly, you know that the employee is embedded, connected, up to speed, and way more effectively. So it's the same with maternity returns, win-win for everybody. So Hayley, back to you again. Does this resonate at all with you? How was your return? And just would love to hear about your experience.
It does resonate with me, but I had an unusual experience insofar as I did come back actually to a different job. Well, it was well, it was because actually I came back managing people who had been peers previously, and so it was a very different period coming back. I also am quite an unusual person in that I don't think I was very nervous. I didn't feel overwhelmed or nervous, and in fact I didn't really enjoy being on maternity leave. I found it really boring and very lonely. And so actually I was skipping back to work. I couldn't wait to get back. But that's not to say that it wasn't challenging. And I definitely, funnily enough, found a little period that I didn't expect to when my son started nursery very challenging. I'm not entirely sure why. And the thing that I found amazing about coaching and working with Rachel was the coaching can be whatever you need it to be in that moment. So sometimes it would be about work and settling back into work, and sometimes it would be about my home life. And I generally find that I can cope if one of them is a bit problematic. When I can't cope is when both are a bit problematic. And so, you know, and again, it's all about communication. And I'd really learned from the coaching that I did while I was off and before that what really mattered was kind of the communication. So I already had sort of paved the way with the people around me to sort of say, well, you know, this new role, I'm doing lots of kind of finding out about how things have been, where we're at kind of now, but equally I'm going to keep you really informed about how I'm feeling. And when I did feel really wobbly about Milo starting nursery and that sort of thing, I made it quite clear to everyone around me. And I do things like say, you know, I don't want to have, this is a really important conversation to me, but I'm not in a good place today. I've had no sleep. I'm not in a great situation. Let's do it another day. You know, it just gave me the confidence to be kind of open and honest and help again to sort of educate the people around me in the right sort of way as well. But yeah, it's just, I mean, to be honest, it's been such a whirlwind. It's quite hard to remember now, but definitely 3 months in was a really crucial moment as well. Rachel will probably remember this, that I'd sort of been fine. And then suddenly we had a coaching session and Rachel was like, what's happened to you? You are like on so much adrenaline, so with everything. And I was like, I know, it's great. I love it. And she was like, oh, you cannot keep going like this. You're going to burn out if you do this. Let's unpack everything. And we sorted out some really important stuff at that point. And that was within that kind of 4-month period that you mentioned, that it wasn't for me initially straight away when I got back, but it was probably a few months after being back when I became consciously incompetent that things started to unravel a bit, and the coaching was just crucial to get me back on track.
So hey, you literally were a new person, new role, new thing. Starter.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Hayley. Thanks for sharing. It's that's brilliant to hear. Thank you. So just to recap on that tip number 3. We recommend you're really mindful of your language, particularly around that maternal principle, and just take time to onboard effectively, thoroughly, and you'll reap the rewards. So moving on to tip number 4. So if I just recap again, we've got tip number 1, start coaching early. Tip number 2, involving the line manager. Tip number 3, treating the returner as a new starter. And now we're moving on to tip number 4, don't miss the women who are back. It's never too late to offer that support. So our experience tells us that support is better later than never. In the 3rd phase of the maternity transition, when the recent one has re-entered the workplace. So this is another significant time of change where that famous and very real juggle that Rachel described earlier comes to the fore. Women typically at this stage talk about wanting to belong at home, at work, in relationships, but so much feels like it's clashing and is up in the air. So questions around identity and personal agency are really common at this phase, alongside this kind of frequent inability to find time for self-care. That's certainly what I found in my talks with my maternity clients. So offering support in the maternity transition never comes too late. There's still plenty of work to be done around issues like clarity, control, boundaries, and communication. The benefits to you and the individuals in your business are massive around this time. So if both parties are talking, clear talking, feeling heard and understood, just like Gervase and Hayley were just saying, conflict will be minimised and solutions are found. So again, it's a win-win situation. The working mother feels empowered, the business welcomes back an employee who's equipped, ready to embed and contribute to the workplace. So Gervase, I'd love to bring you back in here again. I know that you've offered coaching to women at this latter stage of the transition. I'd love your kind of thoughts on the benefits here.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sophia. Happy to. And I would say, you know, I would advocate starting, you know, the coaching at the early stages, but absolutely agree. You know, a sort of better late than never. I think this instance when we offered it to someone just coming back from maternity leave, I think this is one of the first times we'd offered maternity coaching, and we still offered 6 sessions. As to the benefits, I think a couple of observations. I think the coaching raised and answered questions that she had not had the opportunity to really get into herself or with me. And I think the coaching afforded her the opportunity from, with motion learning, from an expert and independent source to do exactly that. And if I compare that back to the first time I managed someone through the maternity transition, I think the biggest overall benefit to her was that the coaching helped her reconcile her professional life and her personal life.
Yeah.
So for her coming back to work, our support was not just focused on her, bringing her up to speed, as it were, and aligning on her work objectives and her focus areas. It was much broader, and it addressed those really significant life changes that she's experienced whilst out on leave and starting a family. So I think all of that made her feel terrifically valued. I think it was also made her feel pleased to work for a company where having a family is not just possible, but celebrated.
Yeah, brilliant.
I think that's a really important voice, Gervase, isn't it? It's that actually showing in your actions, not just in your words.
Yeah,
great.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Gervase. So just again to recap, we recommend that if they're budget constraints, whatever the circumstances, if you only support women at the latter phase of their transition upon coming back into the workplace, there's still massive benefits for everyone to be gained.
So we're going to move on to tip number 5. I'm going to do another recap. You guys are going to know these off by heart by the end of this. So number 1, remember, start the coaching early. Number 2, involve a line manager. Number 3, if you can, think new starter for returner and give her some time to settle in and to find a place and to understand what's going on. But tip number 4 is, don't worry if you haven't done anything until the woman gets back, it's not too late. There are really, really powerful ways in which coaching can support at that point in time too. Which leads me on to tip number 5, which is anticipate the demand for this, because I just wouldn't understand the enthusiasm for it. And I know we've got lots of budget holders, we've got lots of commissioners who might take a slight sharp intake of breath there, because this does pose a really, really realistic challenge for organisations in terms of actually how can we introduce this to an organisation? If we're offering this for one woman, how do we offer it kind of across? How do we do this fairly? How do we show kind of standard support across for everybody and show everyone that we feel that their talent is valuable and that they are valued to us? Our perspective is it's all in the planning. There are loads of different ways in which you can cut this cloth. Yeah, it is all in the planning. And you will know the costs of losing talent, the costs of re-recruiting your talent. The attrition rate is thought to be about 50% higher for women returning from maternity leave in the first 24 months that they return in comparison to women who haven't. So, you know the costs of that are great. So there is certainly quite a lot of savings, we believe, to be made in this, but we do have to be careful with how we introduce it. So in our experience, there are many different ways of bringing this approach into your organisations in a way that serves you as businesses, serves the female population of your business, but also sticks within budget. And I suppose my tip is start by thinking, what phase? You may think, I want to offer support at all different phases of the transition, or you might think, I can only offer 3 sessions. So think, what can you realistically offer? Lots of our clients start with a pilot. So they start with a relatively small pilot so that they can demonstrate the return. And then what they do is they extend it out over time. They extend it kind of wider and wider, or they change the shape of it over time. Some clients, but not all, start by thinking, I want to offer a full 6 sessions, maybe 2 before, 1 or 2 during, and then kind of 2 or 3 for when the woman returns. But we also have clients who say, we can only offer 3 coaching sessions throughout the whole course of the transition, or 2, or we even have one client who offers what we call spot coaching, which is a one-off coaching session. Every woman will get access to a one-off private conversation at a time that works for her. So in planning, in working with your budgets, you can look at what can we offer, what can we realistically offer, how do we start to introduce it, prove the return on investment, and go from there. We've got one client who used a wonderful phrase with us, and I shamelessly have copied it, because they talk about building your own adventure. And if she's on here, she knows exactly it's hers. It's wonderful. So this idea of build your adventure. So they say to their organization, okay, we support every woman who goes through the maternity transition because we want you back in work and we want you happily back in work. We support every woman with 3 coaching conversations. You can take them before you go off, you can take them while you're off, you can take them when you come back in. It is entirely up to you to use at a time that works for you. Now, budget, your budget, I called you budget, Gervase. I'm going to call you budget.
I've been called worse.
So, budget, put your Gervase hat on here for me for a moment, if you don't mind. How have you navigated this, Gervase, knowing that you offer to one, you're going to get other requests, and then you've got a global business? How do you navigate this kind of money aspect?
Yeah, it's a good question. I can give you my experience and some thoughts on it if it helps. I think for me, the process for the first sort of sessions we did for maternity coaching, it was actually relatively straightforward. Although the costs were and still are relatively small, I did take some time to outline the rationale for the costs, as it didn't form part of my existing budget. And maternity coaching is still relatively unknown. My manager was 100% supportive, but I think taking the time to frame it out and help explain the why is really, really important. And my broader team was and still is mostly women. And when you start to look at the investment we make over years and years of tenure, the skills, the leadership, the store of knowledge that they've gained, that we are investing in addressing a really important gap in their journey within the company, it actually makes a lot of sense. And as to lead to more requests, it did. It also led to more conversations about coaching. And I think the conversation is key too. You need to plan, but you need to have conversations with people about how important this is. And in my case, I'm excited that those conversations have continued to evolve to help us consider how, as a global business, we're able to offer a consistent approach to supporting women through their maternity transition.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much indeed, Gervase. That's great. So our tip number 5, anticipate the demand. And we do believe planning, and I'm going to add in there now as well, encouraging those conversations to take place internally. Thank you very much indeed, Gervase. So we are going to hand over to you. If you've got any questions that you want to put in chat, Sophia has got an iPad here, but it doesn't have any questions on it yet in the chat box. So ladies, gentlemen, audience out there, if you would like to ask us any questions or share any observations, we'd love to. We'd love to hear them.
Or please come off unmute and ask if if it's, oh, I've got one. Have I? Here we go. Okay, thank you, Rob. So in your experience, are the coaching sessions best done one-to-one, or can they be group sessions so that there's a mutual support and sharing of ideas? What a great question. I'm conscious that with budget constraints, it may be less one-to-ones or more group sessions.
Yeah,
that's a great question.
I think it's a really interesting conversation, Rob. So where there are patterns in the needs of women, the reason why one woman might be feeling out of control or overwhelmed could be significantly different to the reason why another might be feeling overwhelmed or out of control, because we're talking very personal situations. So undoubtedly, one-to-one coaching is the best, because why I might be feeling a loss of identity might be slightly different to why another woman might be feeling loss of identity. Having said that, there is definitely benefit of having things like internal peer groups. We've got clients who have groups of mothers who have returned within a period of time, or who are going off on their maternity leave within a period of time, and they bring them together to share their conversations, to share their experiences as well. So those types of groups seem to be particularly effective. Facilitation of those conversations can be useful. Would I, as a coach, say true coaching can really take place in a group in this situation? I think it does have its challenges. That's my view.
Yeah, totally agree.
If anybody else has got a question or an observation, please do come off mute. Oh, Layla, I think we've got Layla.
Yeah, okay, here we go. So have you explored support from beginning stages of pregnancy when a woman is facing different challenges, a stage 0?
Okay, so no, Layla, we haven't gone right back to when the woman first looks at, you know, I now find out I'm pregnant, and in part because the coaching, we're looking at it very specifically from a coaching angle. So the coaching needs appear to kick in that kind of like final trimester that they're in from a pregnancy perspective. I think it would be really useful internally. I know that you're an internal stakeholder, so I think it would be really useful internally for you to say, actually, is there any benefit in us starting to talk to women at this phase? We obviously exploring it very specific from a coaching angle. We think people like us are needed just that little bit later down the line.
Yeah. Maria, I've heard a lot of debate with manager involvement in coaching, some organisations really celebrating setups like trio meetings, whereas the flip side are managers who want to leave them to it, as it's a personal experience, etc. Any thoughts on how to strike the right balance?
So, oh, sorry.
No, please, jump straight in.
Those of you who know me on this call know me, I'm very opinionated at the best of times, let alone when we're talking about this topic. So, Hazel, I'm going to come to you in a second. You've got your hand up. So in my experience, this is slightly different from other coaching situations. So many of you know, we as a business, we support exec coaching, we support in leadership and management coaching, where three-way conversations with line managers are a very, very typical and a very good best practice part of the process. When we look at maternity coaching, actually, it is quite rare for three-way conversations to take place with the coach. What I do find is a lot of our work is working with the woman about how she then has that conversation with the line manager. So from my perspective, that's how we bring the line manager in very clearly in maternity coaching, is through the woman herself. So Maria, I hope that gives you something.
Excellent. So Hazel raised her hand. See you.
Yeah, hi guys. I hugely enjoyed this. And I wish I'd had maternity coaching myself, because I had mine 15 months apart. So I remember that very awkward conversation with my boss to say, oh, by the way, I need to go on mat leave again after 3 months. That was very uncomfortable. But my question was around themes. So what are the themes that are coming out for maternity coaching versus other types of coaching?
So we will share out with you, as I said, we've developed a model with the themes of experiences, the themes in terms of solutions from a coaching perspective, and a coaching methodology which we are using now with our clients. So we will probably do another webinar at some point with all of that in it. And we're going to invite each of you to a personal conversation if you want to afterwards, so we can again go into more detail there. The themes are ones that arise in other coaching relationships. So, for example, assertion, how to assert your needs, how to kind of, you know, say this is what I need, this is where I'm at, how to set boundaries, those types of things. The bit that's interesting from a maternity perspective is the timing that they come. So what we find from a coaching angle is we need, in the first phase of transition, to offer quite high support. So we lessen our level of challenge, we offer quite high support. The mid phase of transition, we are all about clarity. So we are all about helping that woman gather her thoughts, think her thoughts. I went back to work when my children were very, very, very young, and I've experienced a huge, I'm self-employed, I experienced a huge amount of judgment from very unexpected places in there. And had I had somewhere to just think my own thoughts, to be empowered to kind of know what I wanted, know what I was thinking, why I was doing it, that would have been hugely supportive there. And then this third phase of transition is where we up the challenge a little bit more again from a coaching perspective, and we go right into action. So that's about how you collaborate, how you talk, how you listen to your business's needs, how you state theirs, how you overcome conflict, because there will be incompatible concerns that come along the way. So we can share more specifics with you, Hazel. I know you're a coach, so from a coaching perspective for sure. But the subtle thing is we have slightly higher levels of support to start with, and then we increase how we bring that level of challenge in as we go along.
Amazing, thank you.
Thank you. So Krupa has said, is there any training you can provide line managers, either live or virtual, or training materials? We've been facing budget pushbacks on some benefits, sadly.
So yes, there are. Yeah, Krupa, there are. They aren't standard things that you're going to find kind of, just out there and about, but there certainly are. I know there's like a toolkit of tools that actually from a professional coach's perspective, you know, it's around this kind of time that a technique like this or an approach or a matrix like that is going to start to become helpful for people. So again, let's talk again, book yourself in for a one-to-one, and what we could do is we could see that kind of thing that you might need. I think it's really realistic. I have to be honest, it's you will get some return on investment from that. You're not going to get that highest level of return from investment on that. So that's kind of, you know, part of how you introduce it, for sure.
So a couple more questions, I think, last, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, Banu, but the hardest part for me, both the times when I returned to work after maternity leave, was leaving my children in nursery and the emotional difficulties I faced. I think we all totally understand that. The social judgment made it a bit worse, as you literally just said. The sickness, the young children I get, having to run to get them, was all very hard. Will coaching help women in this situation?
Hayley, can I bring you into this? I don't know if you've heard the question, but obviously
No, I have, and that's
Hayley and I work together. So
yeah, I've just been going through this, and yeah, the hardest thing for me was definitely leaving Milo at nursery. I felt really, really wobbly around that time, and he didn't start nursery until I was a month into going back to work for various reasons, and the illness is like, that's one of the hardest things, is trying to do the job at about 70% of what you feel like, or 60% of how you kind of felt previously, either from being tired from being up in the night or the illness that you get from nursery. And the other thing that I've been dealing with is having to travel. So I've had to do weeks away from him already. So I've been to the States, I've just come back from Canada, various other kind of trips away, which Rachel has really been supporting me with. And I would 100% say coaching has definitely helped that. Because Rachel talks to me not just about how to cope in a work perspective, but also one thing that she says to me, which always is in my mind when I'm dealing with Milo and nursery and things, is stop judging him on fully formed adult emotions. You're judging him on your emotions. You're assuming that he feels exactly the same as you do. And when I leave him to go on my trips, like, he has no concept of time. He doesn't really know how long I'm away. And all of these little things Rachel has said to me are in my mind and have made it so much better. And we've worked through loads. And yeah, as I said, sometimes it will be about work, the coaching that we do, and how to deal with it in a work context, and how to get the right kind of conversations happening around me. And some of it will be to do with my personal life and how to deal with my personal life and my own emotions, and trying to get the right balance for me. So I would 100% say definitely that's been the hardest thing for me, but also it's been some of the best support that Rachel's been able to give me.
And Banu, I think as well, thank you, Hayley. I think this is again where, if we're educating businesses and educating line managers on the transition from kind of an overall perspective, you know, there is a greater tolerance, I believe, that when we see a parent, so there is a paternal transition for sure. We're talking about the women today, yeah, but there is a paternal, there is a non-birth transition, absolutely. But, you know, looking at the clock doesn't mean they don't want to be in the meeting, doesn't mean they're not interested about what is being discussed in the meeting. But that conflict of, I'm going to be in a whole heap of trouble if I'm the last one picking up late from nursery again, you know, things like that, we know it. If you guys do that job, it's a massive, massive conflict. And I think, again, if we can educate as well people to know that, you know, Hayley wasn't just being a bit ropey in her first week or two back because she's now got a baby and so she can't be quite focused on work properly. Actually, she you know, she got a sick baby at home, or she just got a call from the nursery, and that's why she had to go. And this is what that means to that woman in that situation. I think we increase the levels of tolerance, we increase the levels of understanding, and we increase the levels of discussion, which is kind of what it's all about. I think we've got time for one final question.
Okay, Beth. So Beth's asking, do you think it needs to be the direct line manager that supports the return, or could there be key managers who support in navigating the return from maternity leave?
Great question. Gervase, can I bring you in? He's like, what was the question?
Absolutely.
So Gervase, the question is,
do you think it needs to be the direct line manager that supports the return, or could there be key managers who support in navigating the return from maternity leave?
I'm sure it varies from person to person. I would say the line manager, because I think each and every person you work with going out on their maternity transition, it's always different. And I think there's some general themes, but it's always different. I think if you can build up, the communication and you can make a plan together, I think that from my perspective will work better in the longer term. But I've only done it that way, so I should say I'm sure it's possible to do it structured differently. But I would say getting the line manager involved and educated around this is kind of one of the key opportunities.
Thank you very much indeed. People are needing to leave. Yeah, so guys, what we've got is we have some other questions that have kind of come up, so we will be sure to lift those off the chat before we close on our side, and we will respond to you. Just to recap the last couple of minutes, we've got our 5 tips. Start the coaching early if you can, involve the line manager wherever possible. Education, understanding here is key. Treat the returner as a new starter. She's going to want to hit the ground running, but she might not be quite able to for lots of different reasons immediately, and your organisation will have changed. So do take the time to onboard her, take the time to re-educate her. But don't worry if you've missed people. There's still value in offering support as people return. And fifthly, do anticipate the demand. A few closing things from me today. First and foremost, thank you all very, very much for being here. Gervase and Hayley especially, thank you for giving up your time, and thank you for coming to join us this lunchtime. You are wonderful people and wonderful role models in this space.
No, thank you so much for a great discussion. It's been really interesting.
Well, you're
Absolutely.
very welcome. Thank you. We could keep talking. So what we're going to do is we're going to share more things with you. So after this, guys, we will share the recording with you so that you've got the recording. Please do share it far and wide. We're very, very happily for more voices to join this conversation. We'll send you some additional information with some ideas and some tips. We'll pick up on some of the things that we've heard in your questions today. We'd love to talk to you more about it. So if you want to have a one-to-one conversation as well with me or with a member of the maternity team, we will be sending you out some information about how you can book a short one-to-one with us. And finally, if you want to keep up with the conversation, as I say, I'm a woman on a mission to change this for millions of professional working women in the future. So if you want to keep up to date with our writing, our thinking in this space, connect with us on LinkedIn. And also you can sign up to our newsletter via www.motionlearning.com. I sound like a radio presenter now.
Really do.
Guys, we're going to let you get back to your afternoons. We thank you greatly for being with us, and we look forward to welcoming you at another webinar soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you, Hayley. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.